Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on the Dairy Signal. We're going to be diving into something that is incredibly important, not only this time of year, but truthfully, all times of year, but especially when we're getting busy and starting to have a lot more on our plate, and that is fire safety. And we're going to be talking about fire safety this afternoon with Chief Jerry Miner from the Pittsville Fire Department. So we're so excited to have Jerry back on once again to talk all things fire safety, but as well as maybe some of those areas that we don't always give enough time or thought to, and maybe we should. But before we dive into that discussion here this afternoon, my fun fact for you today in history is that it was on this day in 1885 that the Statue of Liberty arrived in the New York harbor. And this statue took many years to build, initially in France. And when it arrived in the US, it was actually in 350 pieces in over 200 cases. And even though it took years to initially create, to reassemble only took about 4 months. And then in the year on the date in 1886, it was officially dedicated on the podium or pedestal where it still resides here today. But that is your fun fact for this afternoon. But let's transition into why we are really here, and that is to talk all about fire safety. And Jerry, it has been one heck of a year already. I feel like between all of the things going on weather-wise, we're already in a very interesting planting season, and we've got a lot of things to keep on our mind. But what are some of the things that we should be especially aware of during this time of year that you just want to give some good reminders on, especially when it comes to staying safe and having those plans ready when you never know what's going to happen and hit in the mix here. I guess this summer. We're already in June.
Well, the basics of fire safety, fire prevention, are the most important things, and we need to do that 24/7, 365. It's not just an item we talk about in October. So, if we have to teach you how to use a fire extinguisher, then prevention didn't work. So, looking at your farm, your ranch, is it fire safe? In other words, are there things that you can do to reduce fire or keep it from happening in the first place? One of the big areas that we always have concerns about when we do walkthroughs is the farm shop, because it looks like, your dad's garage, and there's not always a lot of order to it, and there's stuff everywhere, and we store flammables in different ways in farms than we do in other places. So keeping the shop in order is always an important thing, having fire extinguishers there. How we store flammables, doing hot work, welding, cutting, that type of thing in the shop has created problems. So always look at your surroundings before you move on to doing that task that you have in mind. Am I creating a problem, or can I, prevent it before it even comes up? The other issue is because we have lots of people that work on farms today that don't necessarily live there or are part of the family, is, do all of your employees know the proper things to do in the event of fire, in the event of emergency medical incident? Again, I work with the National Farm Medicine Center out of Marshfield quite often, and they have created, with the assistance of UMass and some other organizations, a call sheet now that they have available. It's a laminated form that you can write on. You can post it in the barn, in the shed, and it covers all the things that you need to tell dispatch if you're reporting an emergency. And they also come in Spanish as well. So if anybody's interested in that, they can contact the farm center to get those. But talking about the non-family employees, do they know where to go in the event of a fire, or this time of year, severe weather? Tornadoes are not, Wisconsin is known for tornadoes. We're not in Tornado Alley, as it were, but we still get a lot of them. And they can take down a barn just as well as they can take down anything else. Where's the safe place to go on your farm, on your ranch, if you're working there and severe weather comes along? In a home, we always look at the basement. Well, if there's no basement, can you get to the center of the building where you have good sturdy walls? Out in the barn, it might be there, since the basement is the area we can call where the cattle area is. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. You know, the milk house might be a good location. We want to stay away from glass, however, if you have no place else to go. A shed is not necessarily the best place to be. I've seen many sheds rolled up in a ball after they were hit by a tornado. So, again, look at your property, look at where is the safest place that we can put everybody in the event of those situations. When the fire department arrives on your farm for whatever incident, we need good directions as to where to go. So if this is a medical emergency, what building can we find the patient in? Having somebody out on the roadway, if it's possible, to direct us in and let us know ahead of time. Is this person at the farm proper, or are we in the back 40? Because our ambulances don't travel over plowed fields real well, or not at all, or they shouldn't. So we can send correct equipment to get them. What building are they in? If you have a farm or a ranch with multiple buildings, consider numbering or labeling those buildings A, B, C, D, E, whatever, or 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't really care what system you use, but label the buildings with a sign big enough that, you know, when EMS or fire arrives, they know where they should go to. Again, that usually doesn't happen unless you have a large operation, but large operations also mean more employees.
So,
So,
Jerry, before
yeah.
we go on from there, I mean, it brings up a good question that I have, especially when we're thinking about, and I think regardless of size, as you mentioned, you know, a lot of these buildings, we have our own internal jargon or language in which we call them, and you know, as you have different size farms, you have different terms and language for them. So I can understand why, even regardless of the size, having something numbered or lettered appropriately will make a big difference. I want to take a step back when you're talking about some of that severe weather. And when I'm thinking about, you know, a lot of farms, you have maybe, you know, one spot, like you have your milk house, your office area. But a lot of farms, whether they're freestall or the different types, they kind of give that shed mentality, if you will. But those buildings are more common than not. So, what do you do if you're far from that central site on the farm that's supposed to be your safe place and you're like, I don't know if I can get there in time or if it's going to be the place that is going to, you know, get me where I need to be if I'm on, as you mentioned, the back 40 or maybe all the way in Timbuktu on the other end of the farm and there's only that one site that really can provide that safety that's needed.
Well, let's talk about being in the back 40. You see weather approaching, I guess even before that. Be aware of severe weather days. And I think, quite frankly, that's easy to do. With today information technology, my God, you can get weather the swipe of a hand on your phone or wherever. So, you know, today, for example, they're talking about heavy rains later, maybe storms in the evening. I should be aware of that. Your situational awareness is important. But, you know, there's 100 acres of hay down and we need to get it in. Truly, more people are injured or killed in tornadoes because of flying objects, um, uh, stuff that strikes you if you're out in the open. If you are in the back 40 on the tractor, I would not want to ride it out in the tractor. I would personally get away from it. If you can drive, drive at a right angle to it. If you can see the direction it's coming, you know, and just get as far away as possible. We talk about lying down in a ditch, and that is not a bad thing. However, understand that with severe weather comes heavy rains, and they come fast. So those ditch low areas can become small floods in a short amount of time. And again, it's truly not the best place to be. But if you're in the tractor gets hit, you're going for a ride. Um, by all means. I mean, it's just not the safest place to be. It's like in your car. So trying, you know, I'm not going to head for the woods where the trees can take me out. So I'm going to try to find that low spot, or if I can drive away from it, I'm going to drive away from it. There really aren't a lot of options out there in that situation. Being aware of the weather is more important than anything.
I think that's a great message because I know yesterday in the Midwest in Minnesota, there was plenty of tornadoes abound. I know that where I'm currently at, about a month ago, we had a few tornadoes come through as well. And I know June, in terms of weather, is generally the biggest month of the season. So, not saying that we want anybody to experience any of it, but I think it's a good reminder as, we're in the thick of that time frame that, you know, being aware and prevention, even as we go talk about fire, has so much more reward than the after of trying to deal with, well, I should have done something differently. So appreciate that thought there. But, as we're moving on and we continue to talk about, things that we can be doing, especially when it comes to, you were mentioning employees and escape plans and having our buildings labeled so that, EMS and fire know where to go. What else can we be thinking about and doing to making sure that we have our people and our place as safe as possible if we do find ourselves in a situation?
Well, before the situation happens, besides meeting with everybody, is practice it. Um, when we grow up in school, we do fire drills, we do severe weather drills. There is no reason you can't do that at home. Matter of fact, we send kids home with the message of plan two routes of escape out of every room. And I do get calls from parents from time to time saying, they appreciated it, or maybe they didn't appreciate it because Johnny found 27 things plugged into one outlet. And that happens too, but that's okay. That's part of prevention. Uh, Practicing what we preach is important. And also making sure the other things that are there, like fire extinguishers, are ready to go. We recommend you service extinguishers once a year, whether you call in a commercial company or not, if you are mandated in your area to do that. At a minimum, because extinguishers on the farm are in weather kind of all the time. They're not in an air conditioned controlled area. So we tip them over, we pound on them with a rubber mallet, we make sure the gauge is where it's supposed to be, and we also make sure that they are placed where they are supposed to be. It's very hard to find an extinguisher in the shop when it's amongst pails of grease, oil, and other stuff. Putting them right by the door as you come in is a recommendation, because you open the door, you find smoke, your extinguisher is right inside the door. You can grab it and go from there, or not go from there. The idea is you don't have to travel through the building to find the extinguisher that's buried underneath the rest of the stuff. Those things we have to think of ahead of time. And we have to follow those rules, because we know a lot of cases where fires have been put out before we get there because they found the extinguisher, they used it. Perfect. That's what they need to do. So prevention in hand with, well, when prevention doesn't work, and some things happen that we can't prevent, lightning strikes in barns and things like that. Those can be extremely catastrophic. Being outside in a lightning storm is not another place you want to spend a lot of time. Again, lightning is very unpredictable. And here in Wisconsin, it seems like when a weather watch is put in place, I treat it all like warnings. That means all the parts are there to create something worse. So again, situational awareness is important. Lightning is certainly an issue. We don't see tons of lightning strikes, but hitting buildings, yeah, that happens, and those fires are pretty dramatic right from the get-go.
So, Jerry, I mean, you bring up a good point, especially when talking about this and talking about fire extinguishers. So, if you do need one, they are at the ready. But let's talk about the size of the fire extinguisher, because depending on wherever you go, sometimes you see the little ones. And I think about, if I'm seeing that in a shop, maybe this is the pessimist side of me, but I don't think it's going to do a whole heck of a lot if we're really
It's
talking
not.
about it.
Yeah, honestly, to me, code says you have to have a certain size and it's this type of building and this type of occupancy. Well, code outside the barn it doesn't apply quite often. Personally, 20 pounders in sheds are very reasonable. They will, a 20-pound ABC extinguisher will put out a lot of fire if you know how to use it correctly. And if you don't know how to use it, go to your fire department and have them show you how to use it. That's part of our job. The little 2.5 pounders that come with, the boat or whatever, you're better off throwing them at the fire than trying to use them on the fire, because they just don't have enough powder in them to make a difference. I mean, if you get very lucky, they do. They don't shoot very far, and they're just not what you want to have protecting a $500,000 piece of equipment. On a tractor, on a combine, by all means, as big a one as you can carry. 10 pounders are fairly common. It's better than nothing. But on the farm, nothing less than 10. In the buildings, I like them bigger, just because they can do more for you if they have to. ABC rated extinguishers are pretty much all you can get today. There are some things, though, that burn that the ABC may not work well on. Throwing water on an electrical fire too is not a good idea, but an ABC extinguisher can handle the electrical panel. There are flammable metals that we can get burning. Quite often in vehicles, we see flammable metals, and we're seeing more of them. Metals like titanium, magnesia, or aluminums. If you put enough heat to those things, they will burn, and they're very hard to extinguish. In cars, we see them in transmissions, and things like that. And when they burn and you hit them with water, you get an extremely violent reaction to it. So there are flammable metal extinguishers out there. They're very expensive. I've never seen one on a farm myself. We carry them on the department just for those unique types of fires. So the standard stuff is ABC, in the house, in the shed, in the barn, one or two per building, preferably. Honestly, I think, again, let's prevent the fire from happening if at all possible. But again, things happen, and we'll talk about one of those things later, but that we have a hard time controlling.
Well, and Jerry, I think that is a great way of putting it. I mean, if you're going to have a fire extinguisher, make sure it's worthwhile.
Yep.
You want to prevent all you can. That's 100% the whole point of what we're doing for discussion. But if you're in that situation, you want something that's going to be able to pack a punch. But as we continue to talk about, what's going on this time of year for dairy farming, one of those that is always a good reminder is, as we're thinking about our hay. What do we need to be remembering, especially this time of year?
Well, years ago, hay fires were like the number one thing on farms. Standard size bale, putting a hay away wet, and hay is going to heat without anything going on. Hay is going to heat. It's the natural fermentation process. It's just like putting stuff in the silo. Silo gas is going to be there for a certain amount of time. So if we're baling wet hay, understand if you put that stuff in a building, it's going to heat, and when you stack, several hundred bales together, that creates a tremendous amount of heat, and spontaneous combustion does or is the result of doing that. Now, today with the large round bales, the large square bales, generally you see those out in the field for a long time. Wrapped bales, that's fine. They're out of the building. But we've also seen large square bales and round bales stored in sheds because people want them out of the weather. The same thing that applied to the small bales applies to the big ones. There's just more of them. I like to see if they do outside storage and the bales are wrapped or not wrapped. Rather than putting 200 bales in one pile, understand they're going to heat outside too. And if that pile starts on fire, they're a pain in the butt to put out, to be honest with you. They're like fighting a mattress fire. Um, Stack them up in piles where you have maybe 25 rather than 150 all in one pile. Give yourself a chance that if that pile starts to burn, it's not going to take the rest of your feed with it. Big, it's almost like forestry. We put fire breaks in forests. Well, you can do that in the field with bales as well. I understand it's a space issue, but bales are going to heat whether they're inside or outside. How hot is too hot? Personally, 160 to 200 degrees, I start unloading the barn. Seeing a bale at 120 degrees, that's pretty common. But, 160, 180, they may spontaneously ignite. They get enough air, they're going to burn. So, let's prevent the problem, not store them until they're cool and safe to put away. So that continues to be an issue. Not, and I'm knocking on wood here, not as often as we used to see them. It's like chimney fires. In the advent of outdoor wood burners, our chimney fires went down, and I'm okay with that. Same as the round bales, got them out of the barn. That's still, but bales again, they're going to heat no matter what size they are.
Well, and I appreciate you saying, kind of thinking about it as the fire break terminology, like you do in the woods, because from a dairy farm side of things, risk management is always critically important, especially when we're thinking about, okay, what can we do to make sure we're doing good on milk price? How can we, have our feed not go up in flame? Well, one way to do it is to, think about how many you have in a pile or how many you have in a section. And that's a great way of thinking about it in terms of, if one goes, you don't want them all to go. So appreciate the thought on that, because that puts it in a different mentality, at least for me, when thinking about it in that way.
One of the other issues on the farm is because most of them are very congested operations. Not all of them, but if you are, think ahead into what if the fire department has to come here? Can they get to this building? Can they get to that area? And we've been on farms where we end up laying 1,000 feet of hose because we can't get a vehicle back to it. We need access. Our equipment is not small by any means. So, if you're used to the milk truck coming to your barn every day, they take up a fair amount of space. We need the same amount of space. So, and again, I know a farm is busy, especially during harvest or during planting, and sometimes that's a lot to ask, but just policing the facility to make sure that, in the event we have a problem, I can get emergency apparatus in here.
Well, I think that's another good point in the, okay, if something does happen, or if you do have somebody who needs to come on to farm, maybe that is something like if you have extra people around or a hand to be able to move something out of the way, if possible, could be a real time saver for not only whomever may need it or the situation, but for you guys as well to get into where you need to go. One of the other areas I do want to touch on for just briefly, and I know we've talked about this before, but I feel like it's something you can never talk enough about, and that is electricity. I mean, I know we briefly touched on it a second ago, but when it comes to wiring, when it comes to some of our farms, it gets pretty interesting pretty quick, especially depending on the age of the farm, the wiring. So what are some things that you, as from your experience, that you want dairy farmers to be thinking about, or maybe doing when it comes to electrical, or maybe not doing when it comes to electrical?
Well, electrical fires are again fairly common. Usually, what we see is overloaded lines. A barn built in 1950 and still has that same wiring covered in whitewash. And now the power requirements on that farm for whatever you're doing are considerably higher. So, is the amp service you have coming into the building adequate for today's power draws? Out in the shops, same thing. Rewiring barns is not something that a lot of people want to do, but old wiring can lead to problems, whether it's overloading or the wires just simply cracking, corroding, being abrased, worn on. I mean, all those things happen to wiring. Um, I'm not a proponent of going on and doing my own wiring. I can't do it. A lot of places will do it themselves. And I guess if you know what you're doing, that's one thing. You're not really regulated on the farm. But personally, I would rather have a licensed electrician who knows code, who knows power issues, come work on my equipment, my barn, my house, whatever. Uncle Joe, who worked as an electrician in 1962, may not be the best choice. Um, uh, that's really where we've seen issues. Well, we rewired that last fall. Well, who did the wiring? Well, my brother-in-law from wherever. That's nice. Saved you a few bucks, but now it hasn't saved you anything. So honestly, wiring is something that we don't get into, but we have to go there when there's a problem. Also, the issue with wiring is not only creating fires, but there's stray voltage issues, there's injury issues. Again, simple household current is actually the current that kills more people. The 220s, the 440s, stuff like that, they will knock you on your butt, guarantee that, or blow you away from the panel. But 110 power has a tendency to, if you grab it, you're going to continue to hang on to it. Your muscles tense around it, and it's harder to get away. Where the bigger power stuff has a tendency to blow you back, push you away. So don't think, oh, it's only 110 volts. That's enough to kill you right there, and that is the voltage that kills more people. So uh, along the same line, towing equipment through the yard with overhead wires. Always, 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 if you're towing an elevator or a feed truck comes through, it's nice if you can post what the wire height is, but getting them as high as possible is definitely something you want to look at, because coming in contact with overhead, overhead power, 7,200 volts, it's going to burn stuff. It very easily can kill you. So look up when you're pulling apparatus and things through the farmyard.
Well, I think that's a lot of good reminders, especially when we're thinking about, okay, these are some things that can get overlooked. Sometimes you can push them off to the side, and when you really need them to be correct, sometimes that's when you gotta worry about them the most. But Jerry, when we're talking about fire prevention and things to be thinking about, some of the areas that we don't commonly think about on farm are some of our batteries and the things that we're using on that side of things. So would you take a second to talk about lithium ion batteries, or the safety that we need to have around them, and the danger that they pose that we might not be thinking about?
Well, a couple things. When we first talked about batteries on the farm, we're talking about the 12-volt truck battery or the tractor battery. Those aren't the issue. Since the advent of lithium ion, and understand, I am not against lithium ion batteries, they are everywhere. They are a lot of power in a small package, and they work extremely well. However, there are some things you need to know that you don't usually find stamped on the box of the tool you just bought. We are seeing lithium ion power everywhere. Again, if you look through your own house, if you can't find 3 to 5 items that are powered by a lithium battery, you might be living in a cave. Cell phones, laptops, tons of different tools that we buy today are powered by lithium ion. Wonderful tool to have. However, there are some safety things that people need to be aware of. When you charge a lithium ion battery, you should only charge it until it's done charging. Okay. You put it in the charger, the light turns red or whatever, and when it turns green, you should take it off the charger. Lithium ion batteries like to work in a relatively small window of temperature. So From freezing to about 104, 105 degrees is their comfort level. So if we leave a battery sit in a charger for days, it's going to heat. Okay. If there's any fault in that battery, the battery may self ignite and go into something we call thermal runaway, where a cell in that battery, and in a lot of batteries, there are hundreds of cells. If one cell becomes damaged and starts to heat, it will essentially encapsulate the whole battery. So, things to look for. Well, let me back up. Charging batteries, plug them in, unplug them as soon as they're done. Don't store the object you're charging underneath the couch pillows. Don't stick it underneath your pillow in bed. Any place where it cannot dissipate heat is a problem. The bigger tool batteries that we see, and again, I'm not specific to any one brand. They're all made by probably the same couple of manufacturers. It doesn't matter whose name is on it. It's a lithium ion product. Again, I see multiple banks of batteries plugged in places, and we just keep them there for storage. Well, that's fine, except they shouldn't all be plugged in and sitting there cooking essentially, because they can start to heat. They will start to off gas, and the gas that they emit is hydrogen fluoride, which is really nasty. If you're near a bank of batteries that are charging and you have this, it's kind of a mechanical odor to it. I can't really describe it beyond that. You smell something that's unusual. I've seen that with tow motor batteries as well. You hear hissing and popping. That's a really bad sign. You look at the battery itself and it may be deformed, bulging batteries, very bad situation. That means that battery is probably getting ready to have a thermal runaway. A thermal runaway is the fire that starts that you can't put out. When they burn, they create their own oxygen. So that's a little bit of the suppression problem that we deal with. People should, and I'll just keep rattling here because I'm working off of a list to make sure I don't miss anything. And the information I'm giving you, you can find online. Go to the National Fire Protection Association, the Association of Fire Chiefs. All of these organizations now have put out papers on here's today's concern with lithium ion batteries. We know they are going to be there. They are everywhere. And we as fire departments are going to run into them as a cause of a fire. I had a house fire a few years ago where it came down to the laptop that was very old. It still had lithium ion in it and had been plugged in for God knows how many hours. That was the start of the fire. Only use the charger that is specific for that battery. You shouldn't take the charger for the laptop system and plug it into a camera, for example. Those systems are only designed to handle the device that they came with. So swapping chargers, not a good idea. Storing them, don't pile them up in banks. Again, if they start heating, one will lead to the next, to the next, to the next. If you damage a battery, let's say we take a battery off of our Sawzall or off of our power wrench, and it hits the floor and cracks. I would get rid of that battery. Taping it up is not going to do anything. If the battery's been crushed in any way, that battery is very susceptible to becoming a fire hazard. It's really that important. If you run over a lithium ion battery, you need to get rid of it, which brings up the next point. Where do I get rid of lithium ion batteries? And I don't have a good answer for you there. Locally, it's something you need to look at locally. Do not throw them in regular garbage. In my county, we've had 4 incidents that I know of with garbage trucks that have picked up somebody's garbage. There was a lithium ion battery inside it. The garbage truck compresses or crushes the load. Shortly thereafter, there's smoke coming out of the back of the garbage truck. I can guarantee you that's probably because that battery got in there, got crushed, and went into a thermal runaway, ignited, and away we go. So Where do I throw away my batteries? Well, I tell people contact your refuse hauler, whoever you're contracted with, if it's a municipal service or a private service, ask them, where do I recycle my lithium ion batteries? It is a problem. Here in my county, I only have one location that I can take stuff to. And getting them to answer the phone is the next problem. But uh, it is a disposal issue. Do not burn them, do not bury them, do not drill through them to make them less dangerous. That was an old story that's out there that makes them more dangerous. So battery disposal is kind of a real big problem right now. Contact your local refuse hauler. Ask where the closest recycling center is for lithium ion batteries. I do know some clean sweep programs have had places where they can take them to, but it's county-wide specific.
So, Jerry, I think you bring up a lot of really interesting and good points and things that I would not necessarily think about when I'm dealing with a battery day to day, whether it's with the drill, the impact, or whatever it may be. So, when thinking about, how do we store our batteries here? I know you mentioned that don't keep them on that power bank, don't keep them plugged in, but I think about like my family's farm, for example. You got plenty of them. You got plenty of tools, and they all have one plus a couple extra because you never know when something's going to die. So, what do you do to make sure that you're storing them properly or in a way that's going to mitigate the most amount of risk?
Well, as far as do I have enough tools, men never have enough tools, so we need to add to our stock. Anyway, keeping them on the charger, bad thing. Once they're charged up, take them out the charger. You can certainly leave the battery sit there on the shelf. That's not going to hurt anything. If the bat, then you need to look at getting rid of it. Storing them in a cupboard, whatever. I mean, don't stack them up because one will leave. If one fails, they're all going to burn. So I don't think we need to have special storage for lithium ion batteries. It's being aware of what can happen. I would not store them near flammables. If we had a fire in the shed, for example, and it was related to the flammables, and the flammables get to the batteries, now we have a flammable liquid fire and a flammable metals fire, which is really nasty. So storage themselves, getting people to store stuff safely is always a challenge. I don't think you need to buy special cabinets and stuff like that. You certainly can, metal cabinets where you can put batteries in, but storing them on the charger is the first no-no. Even your small electronic appliances, a laptop, your cell phone, once it's done charging, unplug it. The airlines and a lot of the organizations were having problems with lithium ion transports for scooters. And those things have started some really nasty fires. They're very particular, and I don't blame them for putting those on board aircraft. They're usually not with they're down in the hold somewhere, but they can be nasty. And I've seen a couple of those fires. Again, it's the battery. It's not the tool itself that creates the problem. So having better battery awareness, I guess, is what we're going to call this. There's a lot of documents out there that you can pull up on your computer that you unplug after it's charged to give you a lot of this information. Very distinct information too. It's not very complex how to take care of them. Signs of when things are a problem and how do I get rid of them? Those are honestly the biggest issues we are seeing today. And it's not only related to farms, it's everywhere because lithium ion batteries they're all over the place. They're a wonderful product again, but we need to understand that there are some issues with them that we need to be aware of. And they don't tell you that on the package. They will tell you do not dispose of by throwing in your garbage, that type of thing. But unfortunately, when people don't get immediate answers, they do what they're used to doing. So, yeah.
Well, I think it's a good PSA all around, whether it's the farm, on the farm or in personal life, because I'm over here scratching my head thinking, well, I definitely have my laptop still plugged in my office right now. Maybe I should not have that plugged in. But when thinking about, these lithium ion batteries, especially, and I'm thinking from the shop perspective, and I know you mentioned that they're somewhat temperature sensitive. That's the words we're going for here. Do we need to be a little bit more aware when it comes to those really cold nights or maybe those really hot days in the summer? Is that something we need to worry about? Or we might be a-okay, just kind of give them a once over every time you're using them type of situation?
Uh, Good points. And there are some specifics from freezing at 32 degrees to about 105 degrees. That's the range of temperature that they like to work in. A friend of mine told me one time because we have a drone in our command unit and it's powered by lithium ion batteries. So when the car sits in the sun, how much heat can those batteries take? And the answer was if you're uncomfortable, the batteries are uncomfortable. So if it's below freezing and you were sitting in your car, you're not going to be comfortable without the heat running. If it's sitting in the sun and temperatures in cars can really go high, not only leaving the child and pets in the car, the lithium ion batteries are not a good thing to be in the car. After you've used a battery, you should feel it. And if you're using it continuously, they will heat up. That's normal. But if the battery is so hot you can't hang on to it, by all means, get it off the tool, let it cool down. Charging a hot battery is not a good idea. Charging a cold battery is not a good idea. So where you store them, you probably don't want to keep them in a heated shed, fine. But out where it's really freezing, their life expectancy is going to be less. They do not like to be charged when they are below freezing or above 105. And use is also the issue. So when you're not comfortable, the batteries aren't comfortable, whether they're in storage or they're in a tool. After you've used it, if the battery's hot, you need to let it cool down before you put it in the charger. It sounds
I
like
think
a lot of rules, but those are things that we've created lithium ion. Now we need to learn how to work with it. Again, wonderful battery out there. They're 10 times better than all the alkaline batteries put together, but they have with them comes certain risks that we need to be aware of.
Well, and they become so much more commonplace, even in the last 5 to 10 years. It's something that, like you mentioned earlier, look around your house, you probably have 3 to 5 of them, if not more, sitting around in different capacities, even if you don't think of them in that way. So I think it's a great way to not only remind for the farm folks, but also just in our daily lives as well, because it's something that we are going to have to dispose of more than likely sometime. And it's the how do we do it safely? How do we make sure that what we're doing is helping prevent some issues that could come along with the use of these batteries? But Jerry, we've had a really good discussion today about prevention in a lot of different ways, what to be kind of aware of, especially at this time of year, and really a good discussion, especially on this lithium ion battery portion. But, leaving today's listeners, what do you really want them to be thinking about or maybe actively doing after today's discussion?
Well, all of the things we spoke off in the first 15, 20 minutes are things we need to make part of our everyday duties, as you were. Keeping in mind that fire is very devastating. Farms that have catastrophic fires are not usually farms in 4 or 5 years anymore. So it's an economic issue. Fire creates tremendous injury. Burns are horrendous to deal with. So keeping in mind the things we talk about are, they should be on your mind from kindergarten till whenever. We harp on this stuff all the time. If you don't want to see the fire department on your property, then follow the things we talk about. I do, however, recommend fire departments go out and tour the farms in their area because I don't want to be on your farm the first time when the shed's on fire. I kind of like to know where the layout is, where the power shutoffs are, all those things. So invite your fire departments out to your property. And they should very willingly, I would hope, say, yeah, hey, I'll bring the crew out Monday night. You give us a little tour. Especially larger operations that have more people, more animals, those types of things. Mom and pop's farm, I'm not too uncomfortable with. Um, the battery issue is, again, lithium ion batteries are generally safe, but proper storage, proper charging, and proper disposal are the questions. I don't think you're going to be able to, we're never probably going to be able to get rid of the lithium ion batteries unless something new and exciting comes along, but that will cost about 10 times as much. Just keep those things in mind. Anytime we buy a new piece of equipment, there are safety standards that go with it, whether it's the tractor or a battery powered tool. Most people will open up the package. Up here's the little description of all the stuff that you should be aware of. And where does it go? It gets chucked. Well, with these new things, we need to take the time to read that stuff. It's there for your safety. It's just like having your fire extinguisher checked. It's there for your safety, and there in case something happens. The last thing you want is to grab an extinguisher that is not charged, and your kitchen's on fire. Again, we have to think in a firefighter's mindset, I guess, about that all the time.
Well,
So,
Jerry, and I'm also going to put in a little PSA here. Yet it's better yet not only to think in that mindset, but if somebody has the capabilities, I know there's a lot of rural departments that are always looking for volunteers. So I'm going to put that PSA in there, and having that farm background is never a bad thing on those local fire departments. But as always, Jerry, it's truly a pleasure to have you on here, and really appreciate your time, especially as there's always so much going on in the world of agriculture, but also in the world of fire. I mean, you guys have so much time and dedication to your communities, and we appreciate your time on here so much this afternoon.
well, thank you. The recruitment issue is an ongoing thing. It doesn't matter how big or small your department is. We are all looking for capable people. Just a little saying I'll leave you with, and it applies to all kinds of things. If it's predictable, it's preventable. So if you can predict that I'm going to have power with my problems with my electrical system because I'm drawing more power than it can supply, um, you can prevent a problem. So if it's predictable, and I didn't coin that phrase, I don't know who did, it's preventable. So again, another just thing to keep in the back of your mind.
I think that is the best way to sign off here this afternoon. So once again, Jerry, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to all those who joined us here this afternoon. Appreciate you as well. For now, we'll have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you here Thursday on the Dairy Signal. Bye now.
Thank you.